This video is for CSC200 Game Programming 1, and this video is going to start with the assumption that you have completed the little Space Invaders game to the point where you have an enemy, a barrier, a player, a game manager. The player moves back and forth when the space bar is pressed. Then the player fires a bullet at the enemy. Every so often, randomly, the enemy drops bombs at the player. Now, that's the starting point for this video. This video, we're going to go through and add a barrier is going to become a barrier. So anything that strikes the barrier is to be destroyed. So no bombs go through the barrier. Also, no bullets from the player go through the barrier. Okay, so to do this, we're going to start off with the barrier. And on the barrier, one of the things that I need to add to it, right now it's essentially just a ghost on the screen that you can see. So we want to give it a body of some kind. So we do that by going over to Add Component. Right now I'm looking for a body for this, and they're called rigid bodies. So I'm going to do a search for RIG, and we get the rigid body 2D. Now again, rigid bodies for 3D, we're just working with 2D, so be sure to select rigid body 2D. Okay, once we have done that, one of the big things is to go to gravity scale and set that to 0 to make sure that the barrier doesn't just fall off the screen when this starts. Okay, now then we've given it a body. We now need to make sure it knows when something has collided with it. So I go back to Add Component, and this time I want to search for colliders, so COLL, and you pick a collider that matches close enough to the body shape of the barrier. In this case, I'm just going to go with the box collider. It's not exact, but it is close enough for what we're doing. So box collider 2D. So I select that, add it in. And one of the things I want to make sure of in box collider 2D is that is trigger is checked. Okay, so now then I have my barrier set up to have a body, know when something collides with it, but that's not quite enough. For one thing, we've got to make sure that anything that's coming and touching this is also destroyed. So I'm going to select my prefab enemy bomb. And when I do, I'm going to make sure that I have added in a rigid body 2D. And it already is there for the bomb because that's what I was using in a prior version to make sure the bombs move. So they've got a gravity scale of 3, so they fall at an appropriate speed. I'll leave that alone. But now I do need to add in a collider to this. So I'm going to add a component, and it's going to be, in this case, also box collider is going to be close enough. So I'll do box collider 2D. And that is selected. And I also need to make sure on this one that is trigger is selected. Okay, so now then I have where the barrier knows if a bomb has touched it. And that's nice, but we have to tell it what to do when the bomb touches it. So I'm going to go to my scripts, and I need to add in a barrier script. So let's see, I can do that from barrier, and I can add component. And what I'm looking for is a 2D script, and that's at the very bottom of whatever list you have showing. Scroll to the bottom and it will say new script. And I will name this new script barrier script. I'll create and add. Also, C# is the language available. Create and add. And I should wind up with the barrier script showing up whenever it gets through. Okay, there's the barrier script. And let's see, I want to open it. So I'll edit the script. And it's telling me, yeah, okay, I made a change outside of the C# environment, so okay. And barrier script does show up. Okay, so now then with barrier script, first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the lines 1 and 2. We do not need the collections for what we're doing on this. Okay, then in this particular thing, there's nothing barrier needs to do when it starts up. It just needs to sit there and wait. So I can get rid of that. And update is called once per frame. I could do it this way and go through and check to see every frame has something run into me, but there's a little bit easier way to do that. So I'm going to get rid of this one as well. And then I'm going to come in and add a method. Let's see, I prefer my curly braces lined up, so I'll come down and do that. Okay, now then, we are going to add in a new script in this barrier script, which is what it's called up here. We're going to add in private void. We're making our own method here. And there is one that's predefined for us that we can use. And it's called on trigger enter 2D. And essentially what this is saying is, if you have had something collide with you, then this method is called. So we don't have to check for it. All we have to do is wait until it's called and then do whatever we want to. Now, Collider 2D, collision. Collision is the name of the object that ran into you. And so to keep this a little bit straighter in my code, I'm going to change the variable name for that to other. So this is Collider 2D other. So if I refer to other down here in my code, then it will talk about the object that has bumped into me. So here's what I want to do. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what it is with this barrier. If it touches the barrier, it's gone. So I'm going to say to destroy, and now I have to say what I wish to destroy, and it is the other dot game object. So this goes down now and finds out what object ran into me and sends a destroy message to that object. Okay, so save that. And that will turn green eventually. There we go. Okay, so I've got everything saved. I have a barrier script. Now let's go back into Unity, and I want to make sure, where did, oh, they showed up in basic assets, and I want to move that down into my scripts area. Okay, that makes life a little bit easier there. Now I have a barrier script. The barrier script is attached to the barrier. Okay, now if I run this, it's still not going to catch anything because the other things running into it, the bullet, the bomb, both of those do not have a collider attached to them. So let's go see, what have I done with that? Okay, enemy bomb. Okay, there is the script. There is, I did put a collider on the bomb. So let's see if the bomb will be destroyed when I run this. So I'm going to run it. And all I'm watching for are bombs hitting the barrier and being destroyed. Notice the bullets still go through because I have not added a Collider 2D with that. But yes, the bombs are definitely not making it through. Okay, so let's go work with the player bullet now. And it's going to need the same thing. It has a rigid body 2D and using gravity scale for the bullets to move, so I can leave that in there. It already has a script associated with it. That's part of what makes the bullets and the bombs disappear and actually be destroyed and removed from the game after they go off the screen. So let's see, I will need to add a component. And this was still left up, but for my player bullets, they're pretty much circular. So I believe I'll go with the circle collider 2D. All right, again, make sure I tick is trigger. And let's go back and play the game again and see if that will stop the player bullets now. Okay, the bombs are being stopped and the player bullets are being stopped. I have to move over here for the bullets to be able to get up to the bad guys. All right, so I have turned the barrier into a barrier by using scripts and colliders. Now, I want more than the one barrier, okay? Now, the thing is, if I just duplicate the barrier, then if I make a change to one barrier, it does not make changes to the other barriers. Okay, so what I want to do then is change this barrier into a prefab. So I'm going to bring barrier down into the prefab area. I remember to do the prefab, you put something in hierarchy, you get it set up just like you want, then you drag it back down into the assets area, and there is barrier. And notice the name of barrier is barrier.prefab. So once I've done that, you go back up to the original and take it out. Okay. Now then, if I take and place my barriers in here, and like I say, I'd like to have 3 of them. And how wide I make them also has an effect on the game itself. All right, so I've got 3 barriers up there now. And notice they are named barrier, barrier 1, barrier 2. Those are all prefabs. But if I want to make a change to the barriers themselves, all I have to do is come back to the prefab, make the barrier. Notice barrier 2 has the collider, has the script. They're all 3 identical to each other because they're instantiations of a prefab. Okay, now then, I would like to have 4 enemies, but I'm not going to create all of those yet until I see exactly what I want to be happening with the enemy. All right, so I'm going to stop this video at this point. That does explain colliders. It does explain providing a body, a physical body to these particular items, such as rigid body 2D on these. Okay, and we'll pick up with the rest of this game for this week in the next video coming up.